Good evening, and welcome to the Crown Hill Journey. I'm Christina Apt. I'm your guide for this journey, and I'm also the author of the book Crown Hill, a novel of love, life in the afterlife. Tonight and tomorrow night, we will read the final two chapters of this book, and I look forward to sharing these final steps in this journey with you. Last night when we finished, I wasn't sure of the timing. I was confused with dates and days. And the thing about reading this book is it takes full concentration. And so when I'm finished and start to talk to you at the end, I'm still focused on the story that I've just finished reading to you. So I'm sorry for the confusion last night. We will read chapter 18 tonight, chapter 19 tomorrow night, and then on Friday, we'll read book 4, which is a single chapter that's never been read by anyone other than my editor before. So I look forward to sharing that with you as well. Quick review of what you need to remember from last night. There's not a whole lot because what happened was intense and pretty in one place at one time. Meg went to sleep. She was exhausted. She'd had a hard time, a tough day with Clara Johnson coming and telling her so many things about her life and her home that she did not know, including the fact that she was the granddaughter of Margaret Rose Jennings, the young girl who had been at the house during Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Edward Randall's time. On top of that, when she went to bed that night, she had a nightmare that woke her up, and then she went to turn on the television to help herself go back to sleep. You know, the drone of the TV can do that sometimes. And as she did, she turned the television, and as she walked away, she felt something kind of attacking her from the back. Screamed, jumped forward, and when she turned around, there was the television on the floor still operating, and the brackets and the shelf that it had been sitting on the floor by it. None of it damaged in any way, and no understanding of how it could have happened. As she put it back together, went back to bed, she closed her eyes to try to go back to sleep, and all of a sudden the dream that she was having came back to her, and in that dream there was a very dark presence. She realized the presence started at the foot of her bed and eventually moved over her and threatened her life, threatened her time at Crown Hill, and told her that if she did not leave his wife alone, that he would end her life. As she worked through that, she realized that it was Owen Southwick, Mary Southwick's husband, who, as we know from the first chapter, or the first book, was possibly murdered his wife. The town believed that he murdered his wife. The town doctor, who was a friend of Owen's, said that Mary committed suicide by hanging herself. But everyone else in the community believed that Owen murdered Mary. And so, that was a pretty intense dream. And Meg decided she wasn't going back to sleep because she didn't want to close her eyes and see him again. So she determined that she would stay awake until the sun rose, and then she was going to call Clara Johnson, because it seemed to her that Clara Johnson understood much more about the afterlife, about spirits, and about what was going on at Crown Hill. So that's where we left off last night. And of course, Mary and Meg talk, Mary and the house talk, Crown Hill talk, and Mary is discouraged. She feels like Owen's return and his intense anger is going to make it impossible for Meg to be strong enough to help her to pass. So that's pretty much where we are. And now it's time to go to chapter 18. I'm going to take a quick sip of wine. When we're done tonight, I will tell you more about Saturday night and the special event we're having and how you can be part of that. But for now, let us begin. Crown Hill, a novel of love, life, and the afterlife. Book 3, Chapter 18. Considering that she had hardly slept, Meg expected to feel exhausted. Yet every fiber of her being was energized, as if a continuous electric current was charging through her body. As the sun filtered into her room, Meg turned off the bedside lamp and made her way to the bathroom. Doing her best to act as if the morning was a normal beginning to a normal day, she showered, dressed, and made her bed. Truth be told, the whole time she engaged in her morning ritual, Meg kept waiting for the television to magically power on. for the shelf to weaken and fall, for the threatening man of her dreams to haunt again. Immersed in eeriness, Meg knew she needed to get out of the bedroom. She also knew she needed to call Clara Johnson. "Okay, Goldie, let's go downstairs and make some breakfast." Hopping down from the bed, the happy dog came immediately to Meg's side and hugged her in her own way. "Aw, good morning to you too, sweet girl. How about some pancakes with raspberries and blueberries? After all, it is the 4th of July. Within minutes, Meg was flipping patriotically colored flapjacks into buttered, layered maple syrup stacks. Meg loved pancakes, except for one small detail. Living alone made them a less than ideal breakfast choice. Meg had long ago discovered that a good pancake batter required a blend of ingredients for at least 6 servings. The super-sized result meant that Meg either ate way too much or was forced to confront the melancholy reality that she was cooking for one. Contemplating the lack of romance in her life, Meg's attention turned to Brady. Through all of the night's disturbances, she had not given the handsome farmer a single thought. Looking at the clock, Meg wondered if he would actually call to ask about their picnic plans. Based on his departure from Crown Hill the previous evening, Meg doubted she and Brady would ever speak again about anything, no less about spending the 4th of July together. More importantly at the moment, Meg needed to talk to Clara Johnson. The sooner, the better. As Meg recalled, Clara was an early riser. A first thing in the morning call should not disturb the sprightly woman, she thought. After the nightmarish adventure that Meg had endured, she needed someone to share in her mysterious experience. Heading to the phone, Meg felt quite sure Clara Johnson was that someone. Dialing Clara's number, Meg wondered how best to explain all that had transpired. In truth, if it weren't for the purple lump on the back of her leg, Meg would have had a hard time believing any account of last night's turbulence. "Good morning! Happy Independence Day!" The cheery phone greeting caught Meg off guard. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Yes, I'm here, Clara, and happy 4th of July to you as well. It's Meg Flynn. I hope I'm not calling too early." "Oh, not at all, dear. I was just enjoying a second cup of tea while my biscuits bake. I always serve a dessert of fresh buttermilk-baked biscuits topped with strawberries, blueberries, and vanilla whipped cream at our family's 4th of July picnic. Already have my biscuits in the oven before the day gets too hot. But enough about me. How are you, Meg? I've been thinking about you since I woke up this morning. How did you survive the night?" "Well, actually, my night was about as unsettled as our day yesterday, Clara. That's why I'm calling. I know it's a holiday, and I heard you say that you have family plans, but I wondered if you might have just a bit of time to come to Crown Hill today. I would like to try and explain to you all that happened here last night, and I need to do it in person." "I completely understand, dear. I was quite sure when I awoke this morning that something unusual had occurred. In fact, I was expecting your call, so I'm glad to stop by. What time did you have in mind?" The woman's uncanny ability to know things about Meg's life was unsettling. At the same time, her innate sensibilities were exactly the reason Meg was reaching out to the clairvoyant woman. "Actually, I don't think I'm going to be busy today, Clara, so whatever suits your schedule." "Well, once my biscuits are golden, I'm free for the morning. I'll see you in a bit." Hanging up the phone, Meg was soothed by the thought of Clara's imminent arrival. Beginning with her first day in Eden, the intuitive woman had made a point of connecting with her. Now, with all that Meg was enduring in her dreams and in waking as well, she was beginning to understand their meeting was not by chance. Meg needed Clara Johnson in her life, and she was becoming most grateful for her presence. To pass the time until Clara arrived, Meg moved through the house, collecting remnants from the previous day's luncheon. She had been too wrung out by Clara's revelations to tackle any cleanup before going to bed. Stacking dishes on the cast iron sink sideboard, Meg created soapy dishwasher water in one of the double basins and clear rinse water in the other. With deliberate care, she began washing the heirloom china plates as she had watched her mother do countless times. The memory of her mother comforted Meg and allowed her to mindlessly move through her remaining cleanup chores. When a knock came at her back door, she was ready to welcome Clara to Crown Hill. "Be right there, Clara," Meg called out as she took one last look around the kitchen. Yet as she stepped out onto the back porch, Meg discovered it was not Clara standing at her door. "Brady, what are you doing here?" Meg realized her reaction was not the most gracious, but on this particular morning she was far from concerned about manners. Good morning, Meg." The self-conscious man's tone was clearly one of unease, but nonetheless, he forged ahead. I wanted to be the first to wish you happy 4th of July, and actually, I brought you this red rose from my garden as a patriotic peace offering, kinda, I guess." The sight of the practical-minded farmer struggling like a young man courting his true love touched Meg. She was also amused. Trying not to giggle, she accepted the gorgeous rose and invited Brady into the kitchen. "Would you like a cup of coffee?" Meg hadn't brewed a pot, but she felt as if the offer should be made. Actually, no, thank you. I've had my fill today already. I'd just like to sit and talk, if that's okay with you." The earnest tone in his voice and the tenderness in his penetrating blue eyes left Meg no choice. She responded by leading the way into the kitchen and sitting down at the table, offering Brady the adjoining chair. Nervously clearing his throat, Brady began. "I'm not really sure where to start. Guess maybe where we left off last night. I'm sorry for the way I walked out of here. I'm sure it must have seemed pretty selfish, and that's not who I am. It's not my way." Brady paused. Meg allowed silence to fill the space between them. This was his time to speak, and she was not going to interfere with whatever the man had to say. "Anyway, when I was driving away last night, it was all I could do not to turn around, come back, and take you in my arms, hold you through the night. I knew it had been a tough day for you, and I wanted to help, wanted to make it better. But truthfully, all the talk about your grandmother and the journal, and the stuff about Clara Johnson knowing you were going to move to Eden, it was all confusing and kind of disturbing to me, actually. Like I told you, I'm a pretty basic guy." Meg wanted to reach out and touch Brady, be supportive of his heartfelt explanation, but her conscience told her otherwise. You don't always have to make it better for everyone else. Just sit there and let him talk. Doing her best, Meg compromised by giving Brady an encouraging smile as he continued. "I tried to sleep, but truthfully, thoughts of you kept me awake. You are the first woman since Julianne that I have cared about. Being with you, talking with you, hell, just thinking about you makes me happy. The more I thought about all of that, the more I realized that I had to figure out my reactions from last night." Pausing for breath and courage, Brady reconsidered Meg's earlier offer, Could I take you up on that coffee now? Feeling as if his request left her hanging on the edge of the cliff, Meg managed to scrape herself off the chair and get to the coffee pot. Sensing Brady's eyes on her the whole time, she brewed and poured some deep roasted Java and set it before him in a steaming mug. The only language that passed between them was the magnetic attraction of their bodies as Meg again took her place at the table next to Brady. After a few inhales of the liquid caffeine, the determined farmer began again. Thanks, Meg. This is my 5th cup this morning. Anyway, like I said, I couldn't sleep after leaving here last night. Finally, about 4 in the morning, I got up and made a pot of coffee and went to the barn over on the homestead. Actually, going to the barn is something I've done since the accident. After Julianne and Colin died, sleepless nights were all I knew. The only way I got through was by driving over to the barn and tinkering on equipment or cleaning out grain bins or hay mows, anything to keep from facing the reality that they were gone. Tears pooled in Brady's eyes, spilling over onto his face. Meg wanted to kiss away the outward sign of this engaging man's pain, yet she was afraid that connecting their bodies would overpower Brady's mind and interrupt his thoughts. So instead, she sat and continued to listen. Over the years, my mom would come down to the barn in the early mornings as well. She started in those first months after the accident. She'd show up with some coffee and cinnamon rolls or muffins and just sit there and let me spit out every thought I had, good or bad, crazy or sane. Honestly, I think that those times were what got me through. She didn't try to tell me how I should feel or what I should do. She just let me get it all out. The description of his mother made Meg want to meet the wise woman. It also provided insight into the character of Brady, a man who obviously respected and cared for the women in his life. His appeal to Meg was intensifying with every word. This morning, Mom stopped down to the barn. She knew that we were going to picnic today, and the early morning lights kind of made her wonder if I was okay. Anyway, it didn't take long before I was telling her what a jerk I'd been in leaving you last night, and how I was unhappy with my reaction to everything. Clara, the house, your grandmother. As usual, Mom listened, but this time she talked as well. Brady paused for another bolster of caffeine. As he did, Meg left her chair and grabbed the still warming coffee pot. She refilled his cup and returned to the table, hoping her actions would not interfere with his train of thought. Thanks. Anyway, my mom laughed at me at first, saying that I was definitely my father's son. Then she said I also carried her ways within me as well. And because of that, she wanted to tell me a story about her and Clara Johnson. The woman's name caused Meg to emit her first sounds since Brady began. Clara? Are she and your mother friends? Well, Clara's sort of everyone's friend. Like I told you yesterday, she's been around Eden forever, knows everyone in town and most everything about them as well. However, I never knew anything about the story that my mother shared with me this morning. It seems that Mom learned about Clara's special ability to know things when she was first pregnant with my older sister, Karen. One day at a church meeting, Clara came up and hugged my mother. She whispered that she was sure the baby would be a perfect image of her when she gave birth in June. My mother said she stared at the odd woman in wonder, because at that point, no one, not even my father, knew she was pregnant. Apparently, Clara did the same thing in each of my mother's 4 pregnancies, always telling her whether the baby was a boy or a girl and the month each of us would be born. In listening to Brady, Meg felt a strong sense of satisfaction. His mother's story was validating much of Meg's own experience with Clara. She wondered how complete the validation would become. My mother then told me that just weeks before the accident, Clara invited her for Christmas lunch at the Four Corners Cafe. They often got together around holidays, and my mother agreed without thinking anything of it. As they finished lunch and were about to leave, Clara took hold of my mother's hands and said that when the heartbreak struck, she would be there for her and for our family. Mom decided against asking Clara for an explanation, thinking that the woman was growing old and odd-minded. Meg smiled in acknowledgement. She recalled having the same thoughts as Clara had explained Meg's connection to Crown Hill and her family's history. It had definitely been disorienting to hear the all-knowing woman's words. Meg could only imagine the impact if Clara had been suggesting something of a tragic nature. Brady's next statements reinforced her thoughts. Obviously, when Julianne and Colin were killed on Christmas in that accident, our family was devastated. After we finished with the police and the hospital and all the paperwork, my parents took me home with them. They gave me a sleeping pill from the ER doc and put me to bed in my old room. However, my mother was not able to sleep, and somewhere in the middle of the night, she was struck with a remembrance of Clara's words from their Christmas lunch. She called Clara on the phone right then and there. Having suffered her own nighttime terror, Meg understood the need to reach out to someone who could allay the night's darkest fears. As Brady continued, Meg's heart ached for his mother. Despite the late hour, Clara answered on the first ring. She greeted my mother by name before Mom even spoke. My mother said that she was so overcome with emotion that she could only sob, while Clara offered words of comfort and understanding. To this day, my mother says that she never understood how Clara seemed to know about the accident beforehand, or how she knew it was my mother calling in the middle of the night. But ever since, Mom has come to fully believe in Clara's abilities and her wisdom, especially now, since you moved to Eden. Since Clara told my mother that you were meant to come to Crown Hill and meant to become part of my life. The stunning end to Brady's story froze Meg in place and time. She wanted to ask him to repeat that part about coming into his life, but didn't dare, for fear that she had misheard. Instead, Meg reached her arms to Brady and allowed the powerful man to lift her into his embrace. Amid gentle tears, the two sat silently within the moment, aware only of each other. "Oh, I'm so pleased to see that you two have finally found each other." Looking up, Meg and Brady realized that Clara Johnson was standing in the entryway of the kitchen. Bestowing her kindest smile upon them, the wise woman added, "I have been waiting for you two." What had begun as a frightening night was advancing into a morning of hope. I was heartened by the uniting of Meg and Clara. The older woman possessed special gifts and abilities that I was sure could connect Meg's life force with Mary's spirit. Then There was the surprise of the dawning day, with Brady's appearance and the sharing of his mother's story. While there was no way to be sure of this man's part in Mary's passing, he brought a spirit of goodness into my being, and I knew that alone might help discourage Owen's return. My only true concern now was Mary. While she had pledged her willingness to be present and believe, I knew she still struggled. In fairness, I could not fault her, but in reality, the time was now. Of all the chances her spirit ever had to pass, I was sure this was the moment. Sweet friend, after so many years, your time is almost at hand, and our time is almost complete. Draw near. Let us speak about those things that will forever remain a part of us. Let us one last time remember the wonders of our shared life, so that when we are separate, we will not be sad for what is lost, but rather cherish all that has been. I was unaware if Mary would respond, as she had been quiet since the dawn. There was such little time left. I could only reveal my heart and hope. At last, I heard her. Dearest Crown Hill, amid the fears and excitement now within my spirit, there is quieted sadness, knowing we may soon part. Just as you say, it has been many years and much shared. I often am unsure of how we are different, for as so long we have been the same. But of all that I hold in my heart, I want, no, need, I need to tell you that your love has been the guiding force of my life. You have given me strength, confidence, kindness, joy, and an endless sharing of your heart. In both body and spirit, my life within you has been defined and fulfilled. No matter what awaits my spirit in passing, I know nothing will ever truly separate us. My dearest Mary, so many thoughts fill me at this moment. There is so much I want to say. But in truth, we have shared our thoughts and hopes and dreams since you first came to me so many years ago. And within that sharing, we have come to be one, as you say. So in these moments, which may be our last, I will simply tell you that of all who ever dwelled within me, you are the most loving and kind. I am sorry for the pain in your life that seared your soul, and splintered your heart. You did not deserve such sorrow, and I hope that in some way my love helped, for you received all that I possessed, forever and always. Time passed with only the echoes of our words between us. I began to fear that the intensity of the moment and the many fears connected to passing had driven Mary away. Then I heard her soft voice again. Kind friend, your words touch my heart and provide my soul with peaceful courage. Please stay close one last time as we face whatever is about to come. Your wish is mine, Mary. With all that I am, I will be with you. Beloved Crown Hill, one last thing. Yes, my Mary. Promise. Promise that you won't forget me. Mary, I promise that I will keep everything about myself. I'm sorry. Mary, I promise that I will forget everything about myself before the slightest memory of you ever fades. Okay. I'm so sorry. I read that this afternoon and thought I got all the tears out. First of all, thank you for everyone who came tonight. Having a sip of wine. When I hope you come on Saturday to the Crown Hill presentation we're doing with Missy Singer-Dumars, who is the woman who lives in the house now. She has a remarkable story about how she came to the house. With Candy Donaldson Thornton, who is the medium who worked with me on this book and who made sure that Mary and I connected. And then for the story behind the story that I can finally share with you that will tell you so much about what happened in this book that was real and happened, and makes the story bigger than life, even bigger than afterlife. So again, Saturday night, well, let's finish. So tomorrow night will be the final chapter. I'll do my best to read it 4 times before we go tomorrow night so I don't blubber. And then Friday night, I will read book 4. It is a book that comes after Meg. It's called Catherine, 1 chapter, just like Mary's book 1 was 1 chapter. And I think it's the best part of the whole book. But I will tell you on Saturday night, I will tell you why it's not in the book. But no one has ever read this chapter other than my editor and my daughter. She did read it. But aside from that, no one's ever seen it. So I'm excited to share that with you on Friday night at 7:30. So tomorrow night, chapter 19, the final chapter of Crown Hill at 7:30. Friday night, book 4, that's never been published or seen before, at 7:30. And then Saturday, the special event, 7:30. We're live streaming. It will be Missy and Candy and myself all together. We will be Zooming, but we will be live streaming it so you will be able to see us. Missy is going to give you a glimpse of Crown Hill as it looks today and tell you about the farm that she's created there. When I lived there, I had horses. I did not do any farming. Missy's turned it into this fabulous farm with wonderful vegetables and flowers, and she can tell you much better than I, so I'm going to let you hear from her. But you'll really enjoy meeting Missy and seeing the farm. She's going to show you the porch and the swing. My swing is still there, so I'm excited you'll be able to see that because it played such a big part in this book. And then Candy and I will talk to you about the story behind the story. So many parts of it. And then when we're done with that, Candy is going to do 2 random readings of people who are watching. And if you would like to be considered for that, here's what you have to do. You have to go to my website, and there's a contact tab, and just click on the contact, fill out your name and email and just say, I want to be in the drawing. I want to have a reading, and then push send. You have until noon on Saturday to submit those. Out of everyone who sends in, and we had like 10 people last night right off the bat, but out of everyone who sends those, we will then choose 2 names. And those 2 people will notify you before the presentation that night, so you'll know. And then those 2 people, when we're all done with our presentation, Candy will do a live reading of those 2 people. You'll do by phone. You will be able to see her, but she'll only be able to hear you, and you will be live. We will turn the phone onto a speaker, so everyone who's watching that live stream will hear your reading. So if you're not comfortable with that, know that in advance. So there, I got a grip now. Thanks for hanging in with me. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I look forward to tomorrow night. It will be validation for every step of this journey we have gone through over the last 29 days. We're almost there. We're almost made it. So thank you. I'm done. I'm going to go have some more wine and some dinner. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me.